We are continuing the theme with podcast host and tech watcher Kara Swisher of talking about how technology is really changing so many industries. Yeah. And you, of course, you've watched this.
Yes.
And you've also interviewed Barry Diller.
Yes,
before,
many times. Dozens of times.
And I was reading an interview you did with him back in 2019, and it almost forecast some of this because he said Hollywood's irrelevant.
He did. He said
the rise of tech companies.
Yeah, I think he said if their children had teeth, their children wouldn't have teeth because they're so inbred and they don't understand what's happening. He had some sort of colorful Barry Diller metaphor about that. But yeah, he's been very prescient and honest, and that's the reason I've known him for so long, because he was one of the first people to contact me from Hollywood, and one of the only. There were just two, Bob Iger and him, about the internet back in the early days, and everyone else thought it would go away. And I kept saying, it's not going away and it's going to keep changing. And that's what's happening now, and it continues. And so Hollywood continues to struggle with the implications of technology, even at this advanced stage.
And that's the streaming and digital ways
the latest.
Of using the pipes to get it out to consumers. But it's also the content makers.
Right. Absolutely.
It's that Apple makes content and Amazon.
That's right. They're competing with people with enormous amounts of resources and money that Hollywood doesn't compare to. Last year I interviewed Bob Iger, and he even said Disney was too small. Think about that. Think about the idea that Disney, with its parks and its characters, its IP, has a hard time competing with these tech companies that are getting better and better, whether it's Apple TV or it's Amazon. You know, obviously Netflix has really plowed the field here, and is now back again in a very strong position as a standalone company versus a Hollywood company. The
CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, got some criticism, certainly from the union, about his comment that this was just sort of the worst possible time to have this kind of negotiation because all of the strain on the industry.
Yeah, I think he's right, but they don't like that message, right? I think he's probably right. At the same time, he earns an enormous salary, so it's easy to point to it and say, what a greedy man, that kind of thing. And I get that, and I think it's important for them to talk about financials, but it almost has nothing to do with what's going on in Hollywood right now, which is the streaming, this shift to streaming, which is necessary and important, is expensive. The economics aren't worked out. They've overspent. There's enormous competition between and among all the different companies, and nobody's figured out how to pay for people. Now, the actors are correct, is they should get a piece of this, and figuring out who values and who's valuable is going to be very hard. And but there is a real strain on these companies at this moment in time. It doesn't mean it's not going to change, but it certainly is one of those sort of Rubicon moments that Hollywood faces from time to time.
And I'm guessing that the giving everyone a 25% pay cut is not something that proposal from Barry Diller is not going to go anywhere.
No, I don't think so. But they're right in, like, what's their value? Whose value is what, and who contributes to what? And what happens over time when you could use AI and all kinds of things to replicate things rather easily, including writers.
And that's what I want to ask you about, is AI. Because this isn't just the entertainment industry. This is every industry.
Everything.
People are saying, am I going to be replaced by a robot?
Right. Right. Well, not a robot.
Or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe a robot.
Maybe well. Anyway, but on that point, how is the tech industry thinking about this? Because when you hear the calls for legislation, things are not moving swiftly in Congress. They are just now really starting classified briefings on what AI is.
Right. Well, they haven't legislated the old internet yet.
Right.
Not in 25 years. There's not been one piece of legislation, not a privacy, not antitrust, not algorithmic transparency. So I imagine they'll get to this sometime in 2060, 70. I don't know. They find this more interesting, and they're actually moving a little faster because it's a global issue. It's a global issue and a competitive issue with China, for example. And so they're thinking about it because of the implications of AI are much more profound. They're more like the shift, farming shift, the manufacturing shift, the internet shift. So this is a big moment, actually. I know Barry said it was undersung. No, it's not. He
said that about Hollywood, but then he didn't when he was talking about publishing.
Yes, publishing, of course. That's right. I think he's right. They're not going to suddenly make, an AI, I don't know, Brad Pitt or something like that. He'll be around until his career is over, essentially, and be fine. But I do think that there's implications on writers and everybody. I mean, someone back in the green room just said, is AI going to kill us? And I'm like, what do you do? He's a lawyer, and I'm like, oh, yeah, kind of, like a lot of what you do. But it's going to change what you do versus Say you're a lawyer writing a contract. It can write a contract and then you can check it and it could write it faster. If you're a PR person, it'll write a press release better and quicker. If you're in journalism, headlines faster and better, and then you can pick it. It's a lot like using a spreadsheet. I keep trying to explain to people, it's like you don't use a calculator anymore, you use a spreadsheet, and you don't think that that's put all these accountants out of business. It just changed their work.
So what is the entry of Elon Musk announcing he has a new firm and also wants China to be, what did he say, on Team Humanity to shape artificial intelligence?
Sure, China's always really good that way.
It's a surveillance state.
It's a surveillance state, I think that. I think it has to be a global solution for a lot of issues, because when you think about things like killer robots, maybe we should all come, that AI robots, you need to be thinking about that, and there should be global decisions made as a group of countries discussing what should and shouldn't be used. But, every country is competing, and Elon's was early to AI. I've interviewed him many times about it a decade ago. But he was late because he opened AI and he parted ways for a variety of reasons. And then they, of course, launched ChatGPT, et cetera, and Microsoft made the investment. So Elon was ahead, but then he was behind. And so now he's trying to be ahead again after calling for a pause.
Yes, I remember that, a 6-month pause.
I know, it's so funny that he caused for a pause and then started a company. And
Then,
one would imagine that was hypocritical if one was of that mind. But
well, there was no pause, right?
there was no pause.
What is his entry, Elon Musk's entry in, he's already entered the social media space through Twitter, but what does the entry of Mark Zuckerberg's new product, Threads, mean for Twitter?
Very bad.
Very bad.
Very bad. First real, there's been a lot of really interesting efforts. I like them all. But this is someone who has an immediate social network that you can tap into, which is Instagram. Very smart way to do it. It's a good product. They're slowly rolling it out. It seems safer. It seems more civil. It's a real, Musk gave Zuckerberg an opening. And if they were, say, in a cage match, he would have had the stuffing knocked out of him at this moment. We'll see if he can recover, but I don't think it can, because advertising is way off. He's created a haven for white supremacists. There's no safety on that platform. And so Mark Zuckerberg can come in and say, oh, look, we have safety. Oh, look, we have a network. And it was really smart of Mark, and he's sort of redefining his narrative, and hopefully he can get it right this time.
Versus Facebook.
Last time, yes. Exactly.
All the criticism.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be a huge business. It's, maybe $8 to $10 billion for him if he turns on the advertising. And Twitter's gone from $5 billion to maybe $2 billion.
50% drop in revenue.
At least, if not more.
Kara Swisher, it's always great to have you
Anytime.
here, particularly in person, to help us
Thank
make
you.
sense of these shifts that change our economy, change our
Absolutely.
politics, change our society.